Welcome everyone to the Automation of Requirements webinar, where we will discuss how you can save time planning, creating, and managing requirements using Swiftly and SpiraTeam. So before we begin and before I introduce our co-hosts, I will just go over a few housekeeping items. So first of all, I want to say thank you guys for attending this webinar. And this webinar will be recorded, and all who signed up will be sent a recording after the webinar has ended. And lastly, if you haven't already bought tickets, we would love to see you at our annual conference, Inflectra, planned for May 5th through 6th. And Melissa, who is the co-host I'm about to introduce, will be attending as well, so you can have the opportunity to meet her in person. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and I will introduce the co-hosts, Melissa Daly and Adam Sandman. Awesome. So Adam Sandman has been working in the IT industry for the past 25 years and has been a programmer from the age of 10. He is the founder and CEO of Inflectra Corporation, where he is interested in technology, business, and innovation. His areas of expertise span from software architecture to agile development, software testing, test automation, and project management. And he is based in the Washington, D.C. area. And Melissa Daly, perfect. Melissa Daly has 20 years of experience in IT, and she is the founder of Orca Intelligence, which she started in 2014. And her purpose in creating Orca Intelligence was to offer a unique methodology to decrease the time it takes to capture, analyze, and manage software requirements. She believes that software, though not tangible, is very similar to building design and architecture and requires the same governance and best practices. Across Agile teams, her methods have proven to keep stakeholders and software engineers organized throughout the entire software development lifecycle. And we have been lucky enough to have met Melissa because she is based in the same area as we are. And now that I've introduced the co-hosts, I will hand the reins over to Adam to begin the webinar.
Thank you, Audrey, and nice to be here, and nice to see Melissa and Roxanne. Today, I'll be starting off briefly with an overview of SpiraPlan before I hand it off to Melissa, who will be talking more about Swiftly and how Swiftly can manage requirements and optimize requirements and how that feeds into SpiraPlan. So this first section is just an overview of SpiraPlan, also known as SpiraTeam. We may use the terms interchangeably. That's because SpiraPlan and SpiraTeam are basically part of the Inflectra portfolio. We have a range of different tools to help people manage their software development and testing life cycles. Our mission statement as a company is to bring harmony to the software testing and software development life cycles, bringing people of different disciplines together. So the tools that we'll be looking at today will be SpiraPlan and SpiraTeam, which are built on top of our SpiraTest QA foundation, our TaraVault code management solution, Rapise test automation system, and then those are augmented by our help desk system and Spira capture tool for exploratory testing. SpiraPlan, as I mentioned, is the top-level product, and that's what we'll be using for demonstrating today. Enterprises and large organizations will typically use SpiraPlan to manage their entire enterprise. Smaller teams may use a SpiraTeam, which is our team-based solution for application lifecycle management. So one of the key differentiators of the Inflectra solution over other options that you might come across is the fact that we can bridge the worlds between Agile, getting things out faster with modern development processes, continuous development, continuous delivery, whether you're using something like Scrum or Kanban or a scaled Agile solution. You are using DevOps to get your functionality out faster in working increments. Your teams are distributed, working throughout the world in different time zones, and remote working, and of course you're cloud-based. But at the same time, you have to deal with the fact that your software is mission critical and therefore has to have compliance and be able to support the needs of your regulators and your audit community. You're not just releasing software that can break, it has to work with high quality. You're working in industries that span everything from healthcare to aerospace, defense, automotive, infrastructure, logistics, transportation, for example. You need a tool that can give you all those modern processes and support the fast demand needs of releasing software quickly, but also delivering high quality and high predictability with features like risk management, electronic signatures, workflow, requirements management, audit trails, and baselining. These are the options you need. And so the Inflectra solution and SpiraPlan in particular is the only tool in the market that we believe that can span that world between modern agile processes and regulated processes in one system. In this particular demonstration, we'll be talking a lot about some of the needs of certain industries. Specifically, I'm going to talk about government and aerospace. This is an area we do a lot of work in the defense community and aerospace in the civilian community. And that's where you do need to have large programs with lots of different systems and subsystems and components all working together. There's lots of integration challenges. We also need to have traceability at a very granular level with test step traceability. You need to have lots of automated testing and compliance. And of course, security and privacy is paramount. I was recently at a satellite conference in Washington, D.C., where we talked to a lot of the manufacturers there, and every part of that supply chain has to deal with these same challenges, whether you're building a small component to go on a satellite or integrating a large number of components into a finished product. You have to deal with compliance, testing, and the ability to get requirements right. Inflectra plays across many different industries. These are just some examples of some of our customers across the board. We do have, as I said, customers in a large number of regulated industries, everything from energy, power plants, industrial systems, manufacturing, financial and business services, large IT companies, mission critical telecommunications systems, healthcare, life sciences, and pharma, as well as more traditional government defense, and also even on the retail and consumer goods. Regulations and the need to be able to be compliant are everywhere. Every customer working in Europe has to deal with GDPR. California has privacy acts. The ability to test what you're doing and make sure you understand its implications from a quality standpoint, honestly, are now paramount across every industry. The Inflectra solution is built on the Amazon Web Services Foundation, and on top of that, we've added our own functionality to make sure we can comply with various different standards, both here in the US and overseas. And we have many customers in the life science space, both with the FDA and with the EMA, as well as aerospace and automotive that you can see here. So before we go into the live demonstration that Melissa will be leading, just an overview of some of the features that make up SpiraPlan. First of all, we believe information is power, and therefore we put all the information in SpiraPlan into integrated project and program and portfolio dashboards, so you can have real-time information fused from across the different parts of the system, whether it's risks, requirements, tests, or defects. All that information is brought together in a single place. Obviously, we understand that clients are increasingly working with large, complex systems. The software is becoming more like a supply chain where you don't just build everything, but you're using libraries and features and functions from many different companies all rolled together. That complex world does require portfolio and program management built into your ALM solution. Program management also means you can then visualize all the downstream effects of all your different teams and bring that information together. As we'll talk about a little bit later on, we also believe at Inflectra, and this is, I think, a key differentiator, that requirements should drive everything else. So SpiraPlan is a requirements-driven solution, starting with requirements, whether that's traditional requirements or agile backlog items, or it could be scaled agile features, epics, capabilities, enablers, and so on. Really, they're all just needs that should drive the business and drive the delivery of value. So we take a requirements-driven approach, and we do support multiple different views of requirements depending on the methodology you're using. SpiraPlan does support everything from Agile to Waterfall to V-Model to Scrum to Kanban to Scaled Agile. Agile project planning is a key feature, and we don't want you to have a different solution to do that. You can take your requirements management tool, your test management tool, and guess what? It's ready to do your project planning, your Scrum backlogs, your product backlogs, your sprint backlogs. It's got built-in support for Kanban with work in progress limits and various other features for Scrum, including task management. Another feature that we realize clients are needing more and more and is often underappreciated is risk management. And SpiraPlan includes out of the box a built-in integrated risk management module, which ties into your requirements and into your testing. You can use that to do risk-based testing, and there is an extension available for FMEA, the fault mode analysis methodology, which is used in a lot of hardware systems. So that way you can plan out your risks and be able to use that to make sure that your testing is truly covering all the risks in your requirements. Testing is one of the cornerstones of SpiraPlan. It is built on our SpiraTest test management tool. We don't believe you should have to have an add-on or a plugin to do testing. Testing is core to our philosophy. And so we have a built-in powerful test management solution that's fully integrated with the requirements, giving you real-time requirements test coverage and traceability analysis. It's great having data in the system, but one of the questions we're always asked is, well, I've got all this great data in the system. What do I do with it? How do I get it out of the system? SpiraPlan comes with a large array of built-in reports and graphs in the graphing dashboards. You can also create your own graphs and charts. You can customize what we have, and we even have a reporting API that lets you hook up external tools like Power BI as well. Of course, one of the things that happens when you do testing and you have requirements and you have features and you're building something is things go wrong. We call those issues or defects, depending on the type of system we're building, or deviations. And it will change requests even, and those need to be tracked. And so SpiraPlan does include a full powerful defect tracking system, issue tracking system with customizable workflows, customizable types, notifications, built-in real-time instant messaging, all of that fully integrated back to the requirements and tests that you did upstream as well. And lastly, we do have code management built in, and code management is an area where everyone has their favorite tool, whether it's Git or some other solution, but it's really important to be able to tie that source code into your requirements, understand the changes in the code, and especially now with the cyber attacks and the unfortunate threat landscape we're in, everyone is now worrying about where did that code come from? Is it code that we wrote? Is it code that was given to us by a third-party vendor that we're using? What's our code supply chain look like? And SpiraPlan has tools in there to analyze your code, tie it back to your requirements, so you can actually go back and see, why did this line of code change? Who changed it? And what requirement was it meeting? And there are some clients now that will now reject code unless every change can be tied back to a requirement. There are some aerospace companies that make that as a standard process, and SpiraPlan makes that really easy. Of course, the world is complicated. There's lots of different tools out there that you're going to want to integrate. And the other thing we're very proud of at Inflectra is we have over 70 different integrations of SpiraPlan. We build these integrations, we maintain them and support them. And that's a really important part. If you want to use SpiraPlan with any of the tools on this menu, and not only are we going to give you the tools to integrate with them, we're also going to give you the technical assistance and the support to maintain them that you need to make sure those are reliable and continue to work over the long haul. And with that introduction, I am now going to hand over to my co-presenter, Melissa, who's going to talk about Swiftly. So I think the first slide was just the overview slide. Do you want to talk on this slide? And then I'll switch presenters if that works.
Yes, that works perfectly. Thank you again for the introduction into SpiraTeam and SpiraPlan as well. I think, that's a great introduction for us to get organized and understand the significance of an application lifecycle management tool. So thanks again. So Swiftly, what we are bringing to an add value solution is that we're automating the requirements process. This includes when you're creating a solicitation or you're creating an RFI. So if you're on the government side, or if you're on a private industry and you're just wanting to do some market research to identify whether or not the requirements are going to be satisfied by a specific vendor. So automating those requirements. We also have a solution, the same solution can also be able to use to draft proposals. So by auto-generating some of the requirements for a proposal in response to solicitation, RFI, or an RFQ, for example. In addition, Swiftly allows you to do planning efforts. So you're able to plan your level of efforts by calculating your user story points, calculating the hours as well. And we really just kind of put that information into SpiraPlan because it's already there as well, where it allows you to auto-calculate some of your level of efforts as well for each from the solicitation if you want to use it for there, or on the proposal if you would like to use it for that. Now, the execution of the application, Swiftly is there to create your epics, your user stories, your features associated with your user stories. We also are there to support the creation of any data elements or wireframes. So we automate the entire process. And to piggyback on what Adam was referring to about any of the like NIST 800, 171 requirements or security requirements and so forth, we auto-generate that information as well and map it to your requirements. So we're going to get into a demo to kind of show you a light version of what's possible using our SpiraPlan and SpiraTeam APIs. We do have a couple of other items on the roadmap that we'll be able to talk about that are not implemented as of yet, but we'll talk about those later on as we go through. So Adam, if you want to.
Okay, hold on, make you presenter 1 second. So let me stop sharing. Hold on. Where's that gone? So stop. Yep, I stopped sharing, and I can now make you presenter. Hold on. Yes. So you should now be the presenter.
Excellent. I can share my screen.
Excellent.
And
great. You can see it now.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so I'm just going to go over an overview about how we have been able to use with Swiftly SpiraPlan in creating and scoping out work on an RFP or an RFI. So here you'll see that we've imported information using the SpiraPlan API to identify some high-level epics. So here you'll see all the epics listed. You'll see the estimated points, and under each epic, we have identified some specific features. So you'll see the features that are highlighted. And for example, this is just primarily for if you're just wanting to create a plan of or a list of items for your RFP or your RFI. So this information can be exported using SpiraPlan in Word or in Excel. You can, doctor this information up. Once it's exported, we can go ahead and export an example here. I prefer the Excel version. That will allow us to do a little bit more details around it. But this Excel version allows you to just take that information and doctor it up into the RFI or RFP. And it really allows you to have the business continuity between the RFI or the RFP into the execution phase when you're planning out the actual development cycles for the solution. So if we just take a look at this, we'll open it up and you'll see that there's details around the features and the epics that were exported. So that's a nifty little thing that can be used here. And if we go back to the list of requirements, again, you'll see how each epic or each feature has been identified with its specific points. And it rolls up to the details of the epics. So that's if you want to do an RFI or an RFP. If you're just starting out the beginning of the project, if you're trying to get more detailed and granular within the project, here's another example we have. We use this predictive analytics tool, as we name it, predictive web application. Again, it's showing you a little bit more detail in terms of all of the features and epics. I'm going to get to another one, our grant application. So when we get into our grant application, this is the one that we'll really do some practicing around just to kind of show you the user stories that are generated. So here, you'll see that, again, we've created the epics and the features. And each of the features have really detailed user stories. So let's say if you want to view something, if you're going to view it, it has to be audited. If you want to edit something, you'll edit the grant, audit the grant that is edited, edit an invalid grant, and cancel an invalid grant. So what happens is that we automatically create the basic flow, or sometimes you'll call it the happy path user story. And then we also create all the alternative paths as well for the basic CRUD model. So if you're creating, reading, updating, or deleting, and in this case, we have edit, which is associated with updating. And if I click on this, or if I even hover over, the description has the details there. So I'm going to click in there to show us a little bit of the details that were automatically generated. So as a user, I want to be able to edit the grant. Here you'll see that we have automatically created the steps for this particular user story. So the user selects the option to edit the grant. The system displays the option to edit the grant. The user enters in the grant information. The user selects the option to save the information entered, and then it determines that it's valid, and it saves the information. So these are the details here. We are working on the next version, which will have those details associated with the steps for each of the user stories. And then that will be a permutation into the test criteria later. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't create a test directly from this, because you can definitely create the test coverage and the test scripts from this information. Right now, it would only have one step, but in the future, it would definitely have all the steps aligned with it. So if we go through and we look at additional information for auditing the grant, if it's ever edited, the system saves the grant record, and then it captures the audit information. One of the other things that we are also working on in the next iteration is making sure that we port over any data elements within Swiftly. We auto-generate data elements associated with any of the applications that have been developed or outlined within the tool. And so those data elements, let's say for a grant, you would have grant name, maybe the user of the grant, or you may have the cost of the grant. Any of the details, we auto-generate that information. So with the click of a button, you're able to see this information. And I'll show you this in Swiftly in a second, but I just want to kind of go over what has been generated so far. And if we go to cancel grant, same thing, you'll get the steps there as well. So I'm going to go back to our list here. And as you can see, we were able to generate a significant amount of features, epics features, and user stories. So right now we have 3 epics. Within those epics, we have about, I think it's like 15 or so users or features, and then about 2 or 4 user stories per feature, depending on the type of feature. So we use our natural language processing algorithms in order to create this information. So I'm going to continue down the path of creating this grant application system. So right now we have managed grants, we have managed grantors, we have managed users. So you may ask yourself, well, you know, usually you have requirements interviews, you usually have solicitations that you need to perform and have these workshops or meetings or discovery sessions and so forth. So how did you get all of these requirements? Where does that come from? Our standard is that we want to be able to come into an environment and build out your requirements infrastructure. And that includes not only creating your epics and your features or the hierarchy of your requirements, but that also includes making a lot of these kind of basic understanding of the requirements apparent to the end users or the stakeholders that would be in these discovery meetings. So not only can you use this information to prepare for execution and planning, but you can also use this information to prepare for your discovery meeting. So for example, if I'm managing grantors, or rather, if I know that this is a grant application, there are 3 things that I can insinuate from this. The first is that I can insinuate that I need to be able to manage a grant. That's the first thing. The next thing is that I can insinuate that I need to manage grantors, because there's going to be people that are going to be granting these grants. And then the next thing is I need to be able to manage users. So anybody who's going to be using this information. So before an actual discovery meeting, you can make these insinuations in order to prepare for those meetings, so that you're directed in how to manage the scope. Keyword, how to manage the scope. You want to be able to view, you want to be able to edit, you want to be able to search, delete, archive, and so forth. So when you have these discovery meetings, they're very poignant. They're very detailed in terms of all of the actions, the standard actions that would happen in the system. And you're not leaving it up to the customers to come up with the maybe the non-technical language. You're kind of guiding them to what that technical language is in order for developers to develop from. So this can also be used as a guide to really get to your discovery meetings, even to work in your design thinking meetings and your user research. You may want to do user research for viewing. You may want to do user research for editing and for deleting. You may want to probe your users around these specific topics before you go down a path of developing something that they may not need, right? Or you may want to make sure that you're validating their needs and so forth. So we're going to take a look now into how this is all created. We're going to use a couple of scenarios. Right now, I don't have a grantee, so let's look at the grantee perspective. And the two scenarios that we're going to look at, one is we're going to auto-generate all the requirements that's possible using the initial requirements, using our algorithm. And then we're going to use the next scenario and continue to fill out managed users. So I'm going to go to our application. You'll see that I have a couple of projects already here. I'm going to go to our functional breakdown, and you'll see that the same epics features are also in SpiraPlan as well as we worked on it. So now I'm going to do manage grantee. So this would be the individuals that are receiving the grants, and then we're going to say, yes, we would like to auto-generate a few epics. So of course, we've already made this connection with SpiraPlan. So it's going to go through, it's going to create this information. We're going to give it some time. So it's going to create probably about 15 features, maybe about 14, 15 features, and it's going to create the scenarios for each of those features. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh our page here. You can see it's doing its little calculations. It's going ahead and it is creating all that information. So now let's go back to SpiraPlan. We'll refresh and we can see, ta-da, we are getting create grantee, view, edit, search, and so on and so forth. So this is automatically being created. You can see the points being generated as well. So this is, 3 points each. We have set this up so that there's 3 points per user story because, of course, using the Fibonacci method, we want to ideally think that 3 points is going to take us 1 day of work in order to complete that. So if we wanted to do the create the grantee, then that's going to take us about 1 day or so. So you'll see the hierarchy already being created. You'll see everything that, we think is the kind of in the priority: create, view, edit, search, and then after that there's delete. So that's kind of our method and what we think is the priority. So we prioritize a lot of these features and user stories for you already as well. And in less than, a minute or two, we were able to create all of these user stories, features, and epics for you, and also do some estimating as well. So that estimating has us at, for managed grantees, has us at 111 points. So let's say if we don't want to get into that detail, let's say if, it's not the basic create, edit, update, read, delete, the CRUD model, maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe for managed users, we may want to be able to, integrate. I'm going to use that one. So integrate. So now, meaning that we may want to integrate with an LDAP, or we want to integrate with a global access directory for our users instead of creating them. So now I'm going to go back here. I am going to refresh. Let's collapse this. Let's see, where am I? Yep, manage grantees. Oh, here we go. Sorry, it's right here. So integrate users. So with integrate users, we have, integrate the user, audit the integration of the user, integrate invalid user, and cancel the integration. I think we have a double whammy here. But the intent is that I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one just so that we can make sure we have the right calculation. So there are some things where we will have to make a little bit of adjustments, but you can see that that's pretty minor for us. Did I delete everything? Hopefully I didn't.
It deletes the item and any child item.
Oh, whoops. I did that by accident, but I can recreate it. No worries, no worries. So let's say if I was writing that all, right, that would be awful. So now I can go in here and I can do integrate again. And then it's going to regenerate all that information. And so here it is. So I'm going to pull it out.
Yeah, it's putting it there.
So here, there it is, right there. So it's now creating all of this information, again, under the appropriate epic with its feature and its user story. And it should be creating, I think, maybe a couple more. Yeah, I think that may be it. Maybe one more it's going to create. But you'll see, again, the user stories, it's 3 points and so on and so forth. So this is a really convenient way to prepare. I mean, we're using it on our projects that we do. This is something that we can help, SpiraPlan customers with if they want to set up their requirements infrastructure. We believe setting up your requirements infrastructure, just like setting up your development infrastructure and having that framework in place is important. You also need a requirements framework in place. So we have created this framework so that you can manage your scope effectively, so that from start to finish. So if you're managing your scope from your planning or your concept phase, you're just conceptualizing the project that you want, even from the program level. We only showed you this from the project level or the product level at this moment. But if you're going to aggregate that into the program level, that's something that we also can do, where you're using these requirements across the various solutions. So that's pretty important. And then from the concept to the planning, having the requirements there, and then of course through the execution. So your requirements, going back to Adam's presentation about SpiraPlan, your requirements are going to live throughout the entire life cycle of the solution. I do want to also point out that although this is very software development heavy at the moment, our solution with Swiftly and as an add value to SpiraPlan, we're able to create this information for any product. So, you're putting in, a couple of terms, and we're able to identify what some of those requirements are, especially if you're in the biotech industry. We're working on those algorithms. We have a couple of algorithms that outline for data analytics. We have algorithms that are outlined for tools and functions outside of, software development. So that is, the demo in a nutshell.
All right. With that, I will wrap up the webinar. Thank you so much, Adam and Melissa, for joining us today. And
Pleasure.
Thank you all for watching.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.